I'm Donald Moffat.
And I'm Heather Menzies. Logan's Run will not be on tonight.
But stay tuned for the Charlie Brown special and the Fat Albert Halloween special.
And we'll be back next Monday night.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
This Superman portrait is really a send-up of the original Fleischer cartoon intro, where you saw a quick explanation of the destruction of Krypton, the rocket ship coming to Earth, and the pose of Superman with fists on hips, where he's kind of looking down a little bit. This is an exaggeration of that, where I'm getting my traditional kind of Alex Ross low angle looking up the body kind of shot, which again I'll credit to Neil Adams as an influence. This is really just connecting with the most fundamental kind of influence in my life from that cartoon shaping the way that I illustrate Superman. It also connects in ways I'd never even thought about when I was doing the piece with one of the most famous images that Steve Rude did in World's Finest of Superman, where he kind of recreated that Fleischer moment with his painted figure of Superman, and then I would spend the rest of my career pretty much doing what he did before me.
Welcome back, everybody. Time and again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome Dennis Culver back to Word Balloon. Man, it's been so long, as I was saying that to Dennis off the air. Last time we did this, we didn't have video.
Yeah. Been a little while. It was me, you, and Chris Robertson talking about Edison Rex.
Edison Rex, fantastic. Monkey brain.
Yeah.
You bet, man. Back then, of course, you were doing the art chores. I imagine you were plotting as well.
Yeah, we were kind of co-writing that in a weird way. I definitely had a lot of opinions on the story. That's probably what led me into writing more. Was Chris, very generous collaborator, and he definitely helped me get on that path.
That's great, man. And of course, now we're all excited and can't wait to see the debut of is it the Unstoppable Doom Patrol?
Yeah, Unstoppable Doom Patrol.
There you go, man. You're going to start next week, or no, pardon me. You're going to start around Valentine's Day,
right?
With a Lazarus Planet 10-page story that kind of is the launching point.
It's Lazarus Planet has a bunch of specials. This one's called Lazarus Planet Dark Fate, and we kind of tee up the series with 10 pages there.
Excellent. And Chris Burnham, one of my favorite people in comics. I had the pleasure of hanging with him many years when he was here in Chicago. But he's your artist and your co-creator. And, God, these designs look fantastic, and very excited about this series, man.
Yeah. Burnham is killing it. He's doing the best work he's ever done on it. We also have colorist Brian Reber on it, and together they're an amazing team. Like, I think it's some of the coolest work from Burnham that people have seen ever. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's great. Hey, Caesar of Rome already has a good opening question, and that is, How will the Doom Patrol series be connected to the DC universe?
First off, we tee it up in Lazarus Planet. The Doom Patrol have a mission. Kind of the tagline that we use is saving the world by saving the monsters. And the things that happen in Lazarus Planet, there's a volcano that explodes, and it kind of sends Lazarus resin all over the world, raining down on people, creating a whole bunch of monsters, and kind of activates the metagenes that people have. So there's a lot more metahumans in the world, and the Doom Patrol is on a mission to go and rescue those people. It puts them in conflict because they don't want to send them to a place like Arkham Asylum, and they don't want to send them to the Suicide Squad. They want to take them, bring them to a place, their headquarters, which they call the Shelter, so that they can help them learn to live with these disabilities and turn them into abilities. And that causes problems with not only the local governments of the DC universe, but a lot of the superheroes too. So we're directly involved or directly in conflict with the DC universe, I guess is the best way to put it.
That sounds great. I'm very curious. Oh, and hey, Treyway, with a nice callback. Really appreciate what you did with Future State Gotham. We can talk about
Oh
that.
man, thanks a lot. I had a lot of
Yeah,
fun
I
on
wanted
that.
to, as people are chiming in, I want to acknowledge them. God, I love the Doom Patrol. I love the classic team, but I've loved the additions over the years as well. And is it here? Let's see. There's the classic three right there:
Yeah.
Elastigirl and Negative Man, and of course Robot Man.
Yeah, we're calling her Elasti-Woman now. But yeah, we've got the classics in there. Niles Calder is still around, but he's not the chief. So
Yeah.
Crazy Jane, who has multiple different alternate identities that have superpowers. One of her new identities is called the Chief, and so she leads the team now. And then that causes a little bit of friction between them and Niles Calder, but Niles is there as kind of like on a consulting basis.
Okay. Oh, there's no. I was wondering if there was a mystery as to where Niles was.
He shows up in issue 2,
Okay.
so there's solicits already out to that, and like I think it's not a big leap to say that he would have a lot of problems with anybody else calling themselves the chief. So there's definitely he's begrudgingly with the team at this point, but it's fun.
Yeah. At Toon Raider, yes, I'm sorry to say that we don't have headphones, so there's a bit of an echo. And yeah, sorry about that, but you're going to have to suffer through it because that's okay. It's low enough.
Yeah.
You can catch what I'm saying. Caesar has another question. Will any Doom Patrol members not on the cover show up in your run? I would love to see Coagula or Dorothy.
No comment. There will be all your comics count. Everybody that's been a part of the Doom Patrol is a part of this tapestry of the story that we're telling. But all those comics counting, meaning that characters that are dead are still dead. And so we're kind of playing on and picking up all those threads where they left off and keeping it moving forward.
That's great. I remember when Paul Kupperberg brought the Doom Patrol back in the late '70s, and we got some really neat new characters. And yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't been keeping up with the continuity, so I can't even think of who's alive and who's dead. And I will even ask you, next to Jane, who is this on the left?
That's a new character called Degenerate, and we'll actually meet him in the first issue. And he's the way his powers work is he kind of he's in a state of devolving, and it's not that he gets angry or upset. It's more when he's intentionally mean. His powers he keeps devolving more and more. If he gets too mean, he becomes a monster. He becomes mindless, and that can be a problem.
Interesting. I would say from his arms, a little reminiscent of Doomsday. With
Yeah. But that's none of that is bone. He's just an albino guy.
Okay. And yeah, Burnham, man, Burnham's killing it. Man, I got to talk to Chris now as well after talking to you about some of these designs as well. Here's a better shot of Cliff and Larry,
Yep.
and I like Cliff's jacket that's reminiscent of his racing car days.
Yeah, that was exactly the idea. Like I like that he's a race car driver. In my mind, he's the best driver in the DC universe. So I draw too. Burnham and I were actually in a studio together when he lived out in LA. And I initially I did a little sketch of Cliff because I had found like a motorcycle vintage racing jacket online. I was like, what do you think about something like this? And then Burnham took it and ran with it, made it a whole lot better and cooler. But I think he has a real neat look to him.
Beyond doing the series, I mean, were you a long time Doom Patrol fan? Have you always enjoyed all the runs?
I've been reading it since I was a kid. I was probably first turned on to the Grant Morrison series, and I got into that. I became a lifelong Grant Morrison fan through that series as well. But every time there was a new version of the team, I would always check it out. Some of those were better than others, but I've definitely followed along. And then leading up to this, I reread everything too, just to kind of have it all in my head and follow everything. But yeah, I love Robot Man especially. I think he's a great
Absolutely.
character. Like he's kind of like He's almost kind of evolved into like a working class superhero. He's just there. He doesn't feel pain. He's the first one in to get beat up. He just, he kind of walks into trouble.
If there was ever a Marvel DC crossover, I think Cliff and the Thing would be
Oh
really
yeah,
good
for
sense,
sure.
because
There's
there's
definitely a crossover there. Yeah, they
yeah,
got matching
there's a
colors
vibe.
too, so that works.
Yeah, and God, again going, I guess Kupperberg's was my first new Doom Patrol, because I know I read reprints of the
Right.
classic run, Arnold Drake and the like, and I love that cover. I think it was Showcase where Robot Man's new body is cradling his old body,
Yeah, that was real
and they're
cool.
at the grave and everything, and it's like, that
Yeah.
it's like, what the hell is this? And yeah, so no, I love what Chris has done with designs for Robot Man, and also Larry. I mean, I'm a big Larry Trainer fan. Now in the TV show, and I don't remember if Grant made Larry gay, but is Larry gay in the comics?
Yeah, as far as I know, that's how I think of him. We haven't really gotten into that. Um, I think maybe in the early Arnold Drake stuff, he had a crush on Rita,
Sure.
but we don't get into that. In the Grant Morrison run, Larry merged with another person, and then the two of them and the Negative Spirit became this like composite being called Rebus. So that was a little different. But going forward, like there hasn't been a lot explored about Larry, and I mean, I think it's such a great take on the show that I don't see that. I don't think there's any reason to change that.
No, Matt Baumer and Brendan Fraser. I mean, obviously Brendan Fraser right now, all about the Oscars and the Whale. In fact, he was on with Dana Carvey and David Spade on their SNL podcast, because he had hosted SNL years ago,
Right, right.
and they, all it was about the Whale, and of course it's SNL stuff. And I'm like, come on, Doom Patrol, Doom Patrol, because I think both Matt and Larry, or Matt, I should say Matt and Brendan, when they're voice only actors, I mean, it seems obviously that there are other physical people playing
Yeah,
them
yeah.
when they're Negative Man and Robot Man. But man, they are great. They're so great, and I really think they just like the way Downey Jr. brought an interesting take on Tony Stark. I really think Brendan and Matt really brought cool, takes on Cliff and Larry.
Yeah, they both easily redefine those characters. Like, I mean, uh, I think a lot of that characterization of Robot Man was on the page, especially in like Grant's run, which they lift heavily from that on the TV show. But I mean, Brendan Fraser brings so much heart to that character. You really feel for him. Like, I mean, that show really hits you in the heart. Like, it's so good.
So well cast. Oh my
Yeah.
god! And the woman that plays Rita from
Oh,
Two and a
April
Half
Bowlby,
Men.
yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Oh my god! And really, from that first season, what a 180 from her character on Two and a Half Men. And it's like, okay, she is an actor. She is really great, because she projects that old Hollywood
Yeah.
arrogance that Rita, again, in certain hands, projects. And I'm like, that TV show just immediately grafted on, personas that I don't know. In some ways, I didn't take when I would read Grant's run, and I dipped in and out of Grant's run. I'll be honest,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but no,
Well, I think Rita too. She's never had a lot of character depth, and to have what April Bowlby brought to it is perfect, and it informs a lot of how I think about her. There's some interesting characterization with her in the Gerard Way run, where she's hanging out with Flex, and she's a little more athletic. And I find that interesting. I find her, like, if the chief's not around, she's immediately who I think of as being in charge, which I think brings a lot of interest to her character. I like this kind of sporty, more confident version of Rita, but she's still, got that little bit of lack of confidence underneath too.
one, that's when her powers go out of control and
Right, right.
become a problem and everything. No, that's great. Now, and who is this next to Rita?
That's Beast Girl.
Oh, okay,
Which that came from, there's a tradition. They had Beast Boy in the early
sure.
series. So I thought there should be a Beast Girl. Her powers work a little bit differently. She's already a part of the team when we jump in with the first issue. But basically, she affects the primal instincts of people, like their fight and flight responses. So she kind of messed with those out, but then it also caused her to physically mutate as well. So she always looks like that, and then she runs around. She's kind of she looks really cute, but she can turn on her powers and make people deadly terrified of her.
Very cool. Now, Dowd says that Brendan Fraser was on Mark Maron's WTF podcast and that he was in the prosthetics on the show. Okay.
There's an actor that plays him too. I think
I thought.
like some of the maybe the close up acting maybe was a little bit of both, but yeah. Yeah, there's a considerable height difference if you see when those two actors interacted. Robot Man, that guy's really tall.
Yeah, I'm so sad too because of course this week we got the news. Although I think it was a foregone conclusion,
Yeah.
especially with James Gunn taking over, that this is going to be the last season, the season that's out on HBO Max now.
Yeah, the way they were breaking it up too, it kind of felt like it was on its way to an ending. And from what I hear, they're going to end it, properly. So that's fun.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. No, again, this has been another great season. Let's see. Oh, Treyway has a future state question. He says, I remember in the next Joker arc, they referenced that he and Jace had a previous encounter in Coney Island. Did your Jace Fox Batman operate in New York in the past like he does now?
Yeah, that was kind of the fun with doing future state Gotham was, it was this kind of alternate future, but as the comics continue to unfold around it, I would reflect the present continuity as well to kind of give little Easter eggs like that to fans. So by the time I got to the next Joker arc, I knew Jace was on his way to New York or already in New York. And so I was like, well, that would be fun if they already kind of knew each other and they had a little bit of history. I always loved that when that happened. Like, I don't know if you remember way back in the day, like when Cable was around and like Wolverine already knew him. And it was just like, oh, how did, it opens your mind up to like potential stories.
Sure.
And, hopefully we'll get to introduce the next Joker into like proper continuity one day and they'll have that battle at Coney Island. But that's fingers crossed on that.
That sounds great. Toon Raider wants to know, will this Doom Patrol run be good for people who've only seen the show and maybe read Gerard Way's run, or is it going to be reliant on past lore, like Josh Williams said had referenced his Green Arrow series being that way?
It is the kind of thing that the way I've crafted it is if you only know the show or you just checking out Doom Patrol for the first time, you're going to be able to read the book and jump right in with it. I'm going to if I reference something from a previous, issue or previous series, I'm going to make sure that I spell it out. Like anything that you need will be on the page. But if you're a longtime Doom Patrol reader, if you've read all those different stories, like me, you're gonna really find that to be rewarding as well. So hopefully, if you're reading it and you're interested in some of the stories that we reference, you go and look at, check out those older books and stuff because there's a lot of great comics. With the Doom Patrol, they've really been blessed in that regard. Like, there's just some really cool stuff, really incredible art, a lot of great things to look at. Also, obviously, Josh Williamson and I, we co-wrote the first arc of Future State Gotham. He's somebody who was my comics retailer when I first moved to LA years and years ago. So we've known each other for like 20 years at this point. So I'm a little privy to that Green Arrow stuff and. Seeing the pages and reading his script, it's even though it has like that long legacy with it too, he writes in a way too that you're going to be able to pick up the first issue and get it all there on the page.
That's great. And again, we're going to get a 10-page preview of what you and Chris are doing in the Lazarus Planet Lost Heroes?
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. All right. There you go.
Yeah. It's basically we use the core cast and we have like a little mini mission. One of Larry's old superior officers when he was in the U.S. Air Force calls him in for a favor. And it's that guy in the front, General Blanche. And he'll actually be turning up in the main book too. But they basically call him in to help deal with a metahuman that happened during the Lazarus reign. And it's pretty much kind of infiltrated this base, and they've got to go in there and rescue the metahuman and everybody else inside.
That's cool. No, again, Larry's background. Larry in New Frontier was a wingman of Hal Jordan's
Oh,
in the
that's
Air
cool. Yeah,
Force.
yeah, yeah. I remember that.
I don't know if you're going to maintain that relationship at all.
Uh, Probably not. I think a lot of Hal's past is pretty spelled out. If there's a way to work it in, though, that's pretty interesting. I have to talk to Jeremy, who's writing Hal Jordan now. But yeah,
And now this is this a mini series or is this an ongoing?
it's a miniseries. That the way that it's planned, because Burnham obviously does this really detailed, intricate art. Um, it was suggested to us that is like, well, what if we did this in 6 issue arcs, so like a prestige television series, and so every
Yeah,
year, assuming does well, we'll have like 6 issues, maybe a couple
that's great.
specials, and maybe participate in crossovers and things like that. But it all really depends on how well the orders come in for this first series.
I totally understand, and I think that's great. Ed Cato asks his favorite Doom Patrol era. He's an old fart like me. He loves the Arnold Drake, Bruno Premiani, and Paul Kupperberg runs. Do you think that the new run will appeal to a guy like him?
Without question, like absolutely. I've like I said, I've when I was reading the Grant stuff, it made me want to go backwards to those earlier issues, especially the cover of that first issue that was a wraparound cover by Steve Lytle. I was just like, I have to know what this is. Like, it was so interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of classic Doom Patrol villains show up in this, as well
Yeah,
as a
you
bunch
got.
of new characters as well. Like, it's gonna hit all the buttons for all fans of Doom Patrol. If
I
you're a
kind
fan
of
of the Gerard Way run, I got you. If you're a fan of the stuff that predated Morrison, I got you.
I kind of assume the Brotherhood of Evil will have to be in your initial arc in some capacity.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
the brain in Mushiomala.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Always, what a, that was the great thing, man. Drake really put the craziest shit in there, even in the Silver Age, and
Yeah.
that's why the Doom Patrol really was just like, I don't know why I love this, but you can't help but look at it, and of course, Premiani's art was just gorgeous, and I mean, Chris's art, Burnham's art, has really evolved over the years, and I really like where he's at right now. And he is kind of perfect for this. And Frog pretty much says the same thing and wants to know how it's been working with Chris.
Great. Like I said earlier, we were in a studio together for a number of years when he lived out here in LA, and so we have collaborated on projects. He actually did covers for my Image series, Burnouts. We always talk and argue about comics in the studio. So him and I were already talking every day. And then when I was talking to my editor Ben, because Burnham and I, along with Josh Williamson, we collaborated for like 10 pages in Justice League Incarnate, and he kind of did. He illustrated the history of the crises in like all the crises in the universe, and he did such a cool job with that. And when I was talking with Ben was like, "You guys should do a book together." And we were talking, and I had a few ideas, and I kind of got off on a rant about Doom Patrol. And Burnham was like, "Well, you should just do that." And so, and you should do it with Burnham. And so I was like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." And I texted Burnham, and he was immediately, "Hell yeah!" And I think Burnham, the way he draws, the stuff he likes to draw, team full of monsters, fighting monsters, that's right up his alley.
Excellent. Man, Ed wants you to know that yes, Ed is slightly older. That's all right, Ed. It's all relative. You know that. By the way, Ed has a student from Ithaca College, Ithacon, who is nuts for Doom Patrol. He even did a huge presentation on the Doom Patrol.
That's pretty
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, even and that student would also, this book is going to be a really good jumping on point, and we're trying to make it our own, with still honoring the previous versions, and because it's more heavily integrated in the DC universe, that grounds it a little bit too.
and that's great because it was always interesting that they were always kind of shunned by the rest of the DC universe, but not played up. Other than the Titans,
Yeah,
you didn't see it much. Well, there was that great crossover a couple of years ago too, like that Gerard did.
yeah, the
So
Milk
that's
Wars.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Caesar, you might have missed it. We already acknowledged that the Brandon Mala will be showing up because at least I assume when I say the Brotherhood of Evil, I'm talking about the Brandon Mala.
Potentially, yeah. You'll have to pick up the first issue, see what characters are in there.
All right, then. There you go. Very, very cool. Uh, no, I'm very excited for this, and also, man, it is a shame that the TV show is ending because I really think it captured the Morrison spirit and even some of the other runs as well. And I'm glad that DC is, smart enough to put out a series like this now while the series is out there.
Yeah, it's good timing all around. We didn't intend it. Like when Ben and I, my editor, were talking about this series, just by happenstance, this year is the 60th anniversary of Doom Patrol as well.
Oh,
So there's a lot of good reasons to have a Doom Patrol book right now. Like with the fourth season just hitting its halfway mark. Probably by the time the second half that season drops, will be underway. So it'll be a good bridge for people that are like still want more Doom Patrol. We'll have this comic here waiting for them, and so I think that works out pretty well. It seems like a lot of the TV show fans are finding their way into the comics through the older runs. So I'm real hopeful that we'll just be able to get as many of those people into comics as possible.
I also love the innocence of the original title that Doom Patrol ran in, My Greatest Adventure.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, this is really good.
and I'm excited now. Now there's a nod to the old, but I also love what you got going on for the first issue and these variant scratch and sniff covers. That
No sniff, just scratch.
Oh, okay. Because someone had asked in the chat, is there going to be any scent for the scratch and scratch?
Yeah, it's more like a lottery ticket than
Sure.
Yeah. So this idea generated from Burnham. When we were in the studio together, one of the things he would always talk about is how he wanted to do a scratch off variant cover. And to my knowledge, there's only been one other one done, and it was like an old G.I. Joe comic, and it was basically like, who's going to be the new Cobra Commander, and you scratch it off, and it reveals a face. But he wanted to do that, and then he brought it up again when we were talking about the book, and when we got greenlit, it happened to be right before San Diego, so I was having breakfast with Ben during Comic-Con, and I was like, hey, Burnham has a crazy idea. He wants to do a scratch-off variant cover. Is that possible? And one of the cool things about working with Ben Abernathy is you throw crazy ideas at him, he doesn't say no. He tries to figure out how to make it happen. And he just started texting people immediately. And and a couple weeks later, we found out that we could do it. And then it was figuring out how to make that work. And my idea was like, what if we, because Ben already had the idea of doing like the glow-in-the-dark cover for Larry, which makes sense for his character.
Oh, that's for issue 2.
Yeah, that's this one. This is going to be a glow-in-the-dark cover. And so it was like, well, that's neat. I like the idea of variant covers being character-driven because that's something we don't always see. And so I was like, well, Jane has these alternate identities. What if when you scratch off, there's like maybe a couple of different results? And so I did a quick sketch of Jane at the mirror. And then Burnham, Ben said cool. Burnham took that and he made it way better. And then it was just a matter of figuring out which identities to put in there. 3 of them, which is like the Chainsaw Nun, Sun Daddy, and Black Annis, those are all ones that kind of harken back to the Morrison run. But the new identity of the Chief, which everybody knows, and then Shy is an identity that appears in issue 1. And she is absolute horror. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm real excited about that. I think it's a neat concept. I think it's a variant cover that matters, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to, kind of scratch off the result and see what you get.
And I don't mean to keep leaning on the TV show, but it is so fresh in my mind. And I have to admit, I appreciated Jane during Grant's run. But once an actor really was being Jane and showing all those shades and emoting in all those different shades, that's when Jane really popped for me. And it's, again, much like the woman that plays Rita. I'm like, God damn.
Yeah. Diane Guerrero is an incredible actor. She was on Orange is the New Black, too, and, like, was such a totally different character. But the way that she plays Jane, the way Jane and Robot Man, that weird relationship that they have, it's so good. And it's like all that stuff is definitely picking up on previous versions of the characters in the comics, but they really found a new way into it that I think is so good. Like just little little character moments that they throw in there that always just hit you right in the heart.
So are we going to get into, because obviously, uh, Jane being the chief now, I'm assuming the group accepts it, or is there any friction? Is she overplaying her hand, being the chief?
There's a little. The thing to keep in mind is that Jane is a separate identity than the chief. So there, and all of her different alternate identities have different personalities. Like one of the pictures you put up there is like there's the teleporter, and that her name is Flit, and Flit is
Is that
normally portrayed as having like kind of an 80s influence and style, and Burnham leaned into that with making the design more of like that Memphis design with the way the teleportation works. And then the Chainsaw Nun is obviously someone who's just kind of a berserker mode character. So there's all these different personalities. So while there are some external struggles, where it's like this chief isn't Jane, there's also internal struggles too, because Jane's normally the one in the driver's seat and kind of running things, but now the chief, while she isn't the primary identity, she's still outside more than most of the other identities, and that causes some
okay?
problems.
I see. And is Flit new?
Flit's been around. She's on the TV show as well.
Oh, I
Because
didn't.
of the comics, we can kind of lean into them looking all different and stuff. And Burnham ran wild with that design. He did it. He nailed it. Did such a great job with it. It's so cool.
Outstanding, man. Here, back to some questions. Trey wants to know, was Cyborg ever involved in any of the concept stages for this series? He looks to be getting a push now that the Titans are the premier DC Universe team.
He was never a part of our thing. I knew pretty early on that they were talking about Titans. The Titans Academy may have still been going on when we were in the early talks about this. So he's still firmly footed over there. I love they just announced his new series. It's written by Mo, and that cover is incredible. I think they did such a good job on it. It looks real cool. But then the new Titan series written by Tom Taylor is going to be a lot of fun too.
Very cool. That's great. Jake wants to know, do you have any favorite members of the Brotherhood of Dada?
Oh man, that's a hard one because I do. Some of them I cannot tell you about.
Have to read the series, man.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Nobody is always great. And I always liked the look of Love Glove, which was just this armless guy with the gloves floating around. That one's real great. I love the quiz. There's so many. Those were such really inspired characters. It was a really really fun time.
And Alan Tudyk was so great as Mr. Nobody.
Yeah. Brought an interesting take to that character too.
Absolutely. Wesley says he was very surprised to see the Doom Patrol in matching uniforms. I don't know if that was your idea or Chris's idea.
That was my. Thanks for pre-ordering too, Wesley. The concept that came about where we kind of, if you read the Gerard Way series, if you read all of it, really, you can kind of see this thing where, they're characters who have had a lot of trauma, and through the course of events of the different comics, you could argue that they've been on a healing journey. And as you get to the Gerard Way series, especially at the end, a lot of them are healing. They're in a better place than they were when they were started. They're making peace with their trauma and things like that. So in my mind, this was kind of the next logical step. I think when you're dealing with your trauma and you go on this healing journey and you start to learn and you learn to get better, you want to share that with people. And so that's where the kind of idea of saving the world by saving the monsters came from, was this like, well, now that they're not all fixed, they're not perfect, but they're now at a place where they feel like they want to help others, and they want to share the family experience that they got from being a part of the Doom Patrol with other metahumans that are being persecuted. So to me, that and then if you think of the Gerard Way series, they were riding around in an ambulance half the time. I was like, well, they're kind of a rescue team now. It's like they're first responders, and so that's where I took them away from the red color to the orange color, because in my mind, I wanted to kind of feel like they're first responders, like arriving on the scene. They get there first, and they're helping out. And then it was just a matter of leaning the various versions of their costume to kind of lean into their personalities a little bit. Whereas so Rita's a little bit more sporty, and Cliff's got that racing look. He's not even wearing a shirt. It's like a sexy robot almost. And then Larry. I mean, Larry's jacket is just a straight up like kind of an EMT jacket almost that you would wear like in a Lifeline helicopter or something.
Yeah, cross between
so
that and
harkens to him being a pilot too.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. No, this is again. I'm very excited. I think this is terrific. So, what is the final cutoff to order? Number one.
Okay, well, so for the scratch off cover, because of what it is, it takes a little bit extra time for them to make. So that's actually this Sunday. So if you want the scratch off cover, you got to tell your retailer right now.
Okay, better hustle, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the main book itself will be March 5th, and I'll probably be talking more about that and stuff, and we'll kind of get into more about the philosophy of the book and things like that. There are a lot of I feel like there's a sweet spot in the market right now that a lot of comics aren't hitting that I want to hit, and I think that this is kind of like for me, like the X-Men's heyday. I feel like there was a certain sweet spot that was hitting that I would love to see the Doom Patrol hit. I also am very interested in the Doom Patrol becoming its own pillar in the DC universe, kind of. Whereas I've talked about this before, but I think everything right now in the DC universe is kind of in orbit around the pillar of the Justice League, which is the Trinity, Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman. Like the Titans are all the grown-up sidekicks of those superheroes, and the Justice Society is their mentors, and really everything kind of revolves around that. And I would love to see, because the Doom Patrol by design are outcast from that and they stand apart. I would really like to build that up as their own kind of like piece over here. And man, best case scenario, we'll build out a whole franchise of Doom Patrol and spin-offs and everything else. But
no, that'd be great, and I get that, and especially at this Dawn of DC, right? Is that the name of the?
That's the initiative, Dawn of DC.
Yeah, and Josh and I just talked about it, Williamson, and no, this is great, and I do think that the Doom Patrol is properly positioned to be part of that next era. And isn't that interesting? Because again, they've been around since the Silver Age.
Yeah, 60 years.
Yeah, I can't believe that. That's fantastic. So, our Burrow Snake says yes, absolutely. Doom Patrol. He's for Doom Patrol having a pillar. He digs the way that you care for the team. He's pre-ordering as soon as possible.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Comic Boom says the same thing. He's already pre-ordered it as well. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I really think this is the right time, man. I'm really happy for you, Dennis and Chris. Because
it's the kind of thing where if any, pre-ordering anything you can do to spread the word to get other people on board. It's the kind of thing where, I'm guilty of it too. I've trade weighted on books, but the way the market is now, you've got to show up not just for the first issue. You got to show up for every issue. So if you can get the whole series on there on your pre-order form, that'd be great. Like just let your retailer know that you want this book. That'll guarantee that you'll get more of this, and Burnham's on board to do more. He's working away on it right now. We've got some really cool stuff planned. The first 4 issues of the series are going to be done in one issues. There'll be an underlying plot that kind of moves through it, but and then the final 2 issues are a 2-parter. But it really, it's gonna feel it's gonna feel big because it's not just 6 issues focused on one story. It's going to be a bunch of stories that'll kind of really build out the concept of the Doom Patrol and their mission and what they're doing. It'll feel bigger. Yeah.
That's great, and I'm glad to hear that because honestly, I appreciate a 5 or 6 part story, but I also miss the fact that you can dip in and enjoy a 1-shot or even a 2-parter and everything. So that's great to hear.
Yeah. There's some really cool ideas. An idea that I originally had for just a Robot Man story, but that's kind of started the conversations about all this, ends up being issue 3. We hit on just a lot of really cool ideas, and them, kind of stepping on the toes of the DC universe and stuff like that. It's gonna be a real fun time.
As an artist yourself, are you sending Chris breakdowns along with scripts, or are you pretty much,
I mean, Burnham is a way better artist than me. Sometimes if I am stuck on how to communicate an idea, I'll draw it for him, but I don't make any suggestions on layouts or anything like that. Costumes, I'm a pretty good character designer. A lot of times I'll send those suggestions along and then he'll tweak them to like what he prefers and things like that. But it's good to we already kind of have a shorthand just from being in the studio together. So we know each other's quirks and it's like we can communicate pretty quickly on the story and stuff.
So are these designs, are these your drawings or Chris's?
Oh, that's us. That's both of us. It's a collaboration. Like the D, it's a P inside the D there.
Sure.
That there's a history of the Doom Patrol having a logo that does that. Like Jane made one in the original Grant series. But I was wanting to kind of change it a little and make it our own, almost like the X-Men's X, right?
Yeah.
But like something iconic that we could brand our series and the characters with. And I had an initial idea that I did a sketch of, and I sent it to Burnham, like, does this look like a thing? And then he did a little bit of it. He's like, well, what if it looked like this? And we kind of went back and forth with that. So it's really fun collaborating on those parts of it. Or if there's a new character, a lot of times I'll say, hey, I got a character idea for this. This is what I'm thinking. And then he'll kind of, put his razzle dazzle on it and make it cool. But yeah, Burnham's a great artist. He always goes for it. Like he doesn't cut corners. He really makes everything look incredibly cool. And I know I showed you a bunch of pages. Like they look really good. Like I'm so happy with how this book's coming together. And then Brian's colors, which are what some of those pictures have. Brian Reber, he's been in the business for years, and he's such a master at what he does. Like they are the perfect team.
Doubt wants to know, beyond the scratch off covers for number one, the glow in the dark cover for number two, are you also going to do any gimmicky ideas for the other covers?
Yeah, some of those are in the works. A lot of them will be like kind of tied to the stories that are happening in the book. But that is ultimately our editor, Ben. He's got a real good mind for putting together variant covers. Before he was more directly involved with editorial, he was running a lot of the variant cover programs. So I'm never worried about that. Like Ben's always on top of those things.
Comic Boom is also cheering on the fact that as we learned that the cancellation of the series is happening, that they also will migrate to the comic. I agree, man. Again,
that wasn't my intent when we started this, but it. Hopefully, we can provide like kind of a some kind of port for them and to come into and still enjoy those characters.
Did you watch when they did kind of the backdoor pilot on the Titans series, and they had Beast Boy come home, and I thought that was a really great episode, and it was a slightly different cast. It wasn't Timothy Dalton as the Chief, and then some of the others. I really thought they did a good job, and obviously that was the idea, to be a backdoor pilot for the other series.
I watched that. It was a little more Banana Splits feeling with the voiceovers and stuff with the characters, but so I was a little hesitant on the new series, and then when that series, I was like, oh, this is great, it's perfect, they nailed it. I actually I did a variant cover that I drew for the first issue. It's a writer variant. I don't think I have it in there with the images I showed you, but okay. While I was doing that, like, because when you're drawing, you can focus on other things. I rewatched the whole series of the first 3 seasons again, and it's worth rewatching. Like it's such a great show. Like I just it's not the last time that I'll watch it. Like I think they did such a great job.
I completely hear you, and that's kind of the bittersweetness of what we've gotten so far from the DC television side. And it's a shame because, again, I understand, and I don't blame James Gunn for wanting to do his own thing. Also, I understand that Warner's is in a restructuring mode, and my God, they've got massive debt that they've got to cut, and they're making a lot of really heartbreaking decisions. But, and also, and again, I don't expect you to answer this, but it's my own observation that I wonder, too, will they spin off the DC stuff and the Warner stuff to some other owner? Because it almost seems like these financial cuts and everything are almost to cut the bottom line to make them more attractive to be sold. I don't know what the plan is.
Yeah, I have that is way above my pay grade. But I mean, look, bottom line, like 4 seasons of a Doom Patrol show, is a miracle. Like what a time to be alive. Like when I was a kid, when you were a kid, I mean, we live in a nerd paradise now with all
Oh,
these
good
like
lord.
amazing things that we get to watch. And they're good. Like there's some
Well,
really good
that's
stuff out there. There's some not so good stuff, but I mean, for the most part, the quality is incredible. Yeah.
dude, I so agree with you. I got a couple decades, I think, on you. I don't know, but I mean, I remember. I mean, I mean, I sound like Dana Carvey's old character on SNL. We'd see those horrible NBC specials of Challenge of the Superheroes. We loved it
Oh
because it's like,
right.
oh man, they're on TV. This is great. Well, now, oh man, not only are they on TV, or the Marvel '70s movies that CBS used to run,
Yeah, yeah.
and now it's like, wow, these are on and they're good. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, who knew? This is so
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that Generation X TV movie they did like in the
yes.
90s.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was bad, but you had to show up. Like you had to watch it. Like you had to be there for it and like, we're going to support this even if it's terrible because just the idea of getting that stuff out there was important.
Hasselhoff when he did the Nick Fury movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man.
Absolutely, man. That's so funny. Comic Boom wants to know which character is the most challenging to write and which is the easiest to write for you.
Ah, that's interesting. I feel like I slip into Cliff really easy. Like I feel like that's, because he's just like, hell, this is what we're dealing with. Just gotta go, gotta go punch the thing. Um, hmm. Challenging character. I think Niles is a little challenging. Because I don't think he's a villain, but if you follow his history, he's done some horrible shit. Like especially in the Grant run, when it turns out he's responsible for all those accidents. I consider it a psychotic break for him, and he's kind of spent every day after that, even when he was just ahead in the Rachel Pollack run, like he's just spent all that time kind of atoning for that and healing. So it's like he's still arrogant enough to think he needs to be in charge, but he's also aware of like the pain he's caused and he wants to fix that, and I think it's a tricky balance to find. Uh, which is something I struggled with a little. But then I brought him to the forefront in one of the issues, and I think that really, for me, helped me land that character a little better, and I'm really happy where it landed.
With the Chief and the original three, do you see them as being kind of peers to the Justice League and being characters that have known the heroes and vice versa? More so than the newer generations of the Doom Patrol characters.
I don't think any of them are friends. I think it's like, they appeared right before our book in Mark Waid's World's Finest book, and they basically showed up on as Batman and Superman. Superman had been injured, and they showed up because Niles is like, he's a superhero doctor,
Right.
and they showed up on their doorstep, and they through the course of that get involved in the adventure. But I don't see those heroes just showing up at the Doom Patrol to hang out. Like
No, no,
they're
no. And I
always kind of
realize that.
they're
Yes.
weird outcasts, and they only
Right.
are around when they need them, or they get sucked into the Doom Patrols. Like during the Grant Morrison run, there was that the painting that ate Paris, and it was like the whole Justice League showed up, but they couldn't do anything. They just stood around and watched the painting while the Doom Patrol was inside of it, dealing with the Brotherhood of Dada, and just weird shit was going on. So it's the kind of thing where I always feel like they're kind of just off and separate. A good analogy, if you're into Marvel, if you remember the original Secret Wars when they were all kind of put together, the X-Men were kind of still off standing on their own while all the other heroes were together. I think it's that same kind of vibe, but just more of like, the Doom Patrol are just really weird and they don't
Oh
necessarily
yeah.
fully understand them.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that they were friends necessarily,
Yeah.
but that they were like, and especially the original three, that there is a history there with the Justice League, with the older heroes,
Yeah.
that they know them. They don't have to like them,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but it's like, and I could even see Cliff being like, oh, fuck you, Bruce,
Yeah, exactly.
and your
Yeah.
pompous attitude, whatever. Again, that Ben Grimm kind of cutting through these guys and being like, listen,
Yeah.
I'm the big man on campus that I was back in college, and I'm the fly jack. I know everybody, is afraid of me because I'm this big lumpy orange thing, but I got your number, man, and you don't
Yeah.
impress me. And I could see that with Cliff, and then same thing with Larry too, for that matter.
Yeah, if you look at the preview pages that are already online of Burnham's art, they're rolling into Gotham City, and there's no dialogue on that yet. But one of the panels, it's a close up on Cliff, and he basically says, "I hate this town." Like he just, it's just like, we got to go to Gotham's. It's just he's not happy about it. No one's happy to be dealing with Batman or any of those kind of things. Just because Batman's a dick, especially when you go to his city without his permission, and that's what the Doom Patrol are doing. So it's definitely there's no love between the rest of the superheroes and the Doom Patrol, and I would say that most of them regard them as curiosity, and a lot of them probably don't think about them unless they have to deal with them, and so I think they're largely forgotten, like kind of like as they are handled in the real world, they are also handled in the fictional world, and hopefully we'll make them so big a problem that you can't ignore them anymore.
And I don't know how much you want to tip this, but Snake is asking which individual or team would your ideal crossover be?
I mean, I would. There's no Justice League currently. That's what the Titans are kind of stepping up into. But I would love to see less of a crossover and more of them squaring off against the Justice League.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, there was a Doom Patrol Suicide Squad special back in the day that does the Kupperberg stuff. I would love to do that again. Like I would love to have the Doom Patrol and the Suicide Squad square off because they are diametrically opposed. Like it's for as far as the Doom Patrol is concerned, the Suicide Squad is the worst case scenario that can happen to you as a metahuman is that you're arrested, you're made to be a weapon for the government, you have a bomb in your head, you're forced to do all this work. Like that is everything my version of the Doom Patrol stands against. And so like I think those teams crossing each other would be really interesting, and I think they would balance each other out depending on the Suicide Squad team, obviously.
No, I get it. I absolutely see that, and that's what I'm saying too. Is no, I don't want a kumbaya moment with these other
Yeah,
characters.
yeah,
We
yeah.
want conflict. Conflict is where story happens, man. And as you say, the way you're positioning the Doom Patrol really is kind of diametrically opposed to, and also that they could be misunderstood because of their weirdness and the
Yeah.
way that they approach problems, and having randoms like Jane part of the group and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's the thesis really behind my series. Like, it's not just the Suicide Squad that's a problem in their eyes. The Justice League has allowed the Suicide Squad to exist for a long time. They know it's there. They've encountered them. They've dealt with them, and it's like that shouldn't be a thing. Arkham Asylum is a problem for the Doom Patrol because like going to Arkham Asylum, you're either going to become a victim of one of those villains there, or you're going to become one of those psychotic villains. Like it's one way or the other. Like there's no good options in my mind when you're a metahuman that's just lost control of your powers, and that's the alternative that the Doom Patrol's trying to do.
understood.
Yeah.
Another character that you're working with, at least for Lazarus Planet, we're going to see next week, and that's Firestorm.
Yep. Yeah.
What can you
He's
tell us about that story without spoiling?
yeah, I love Firestorm. Like I always thought it was cool when he was on the old Superpower show. Like I think he's got a neat look.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of his. I'm a huge DC fan anyway, so I've just read a lot of his stuff. So I had an idea for Firestorm that I had pitched to Paul, and Paul was like, "Well, we're doing this Lazarus Planet stuff. Why don't you take some of this idea and at least put it in here?" And I kind of like the idea of leaning Firestorm into because there's a body horror aspect to Firestorm that's because he's taken another person and he's merging with him to become a superhero, and there's just something really creepy about that to me, and I wanted to kind of lean into that idea with the Lazarus Rain. It kind of affects the Firestorm matrix, and that causes some problems. And then it's through that Ronnie Raymond encounters some of the consequences of that Lazarus Rain, and he has to find a way back into being Firestorm without hurting himself or anybody. It becomes unstable. Which I guess it's always been unstable with the Firestorm matrix.
Okay, so and then Dal was wondering if it was going to be Ronnie or Jason, and I don't want you to tip your hand for your story, but yeah, I mean, will Ronnie be encountering someone else? I mean, is Mark,
Yeah.
and I don't even know,
Well,
is
yeah,
Mark
the
dead?
last continuity I read about Jason is he's unable to become Firestorm anymore. But the story it'll be Professor Stein as a
Okay.
part of the Matrix. And it definitely, if you read Doomsday Clock, it definitely kind of flies off of that. So they're already in conflict based on what happened in Doomsday Clock because you learned there that Professor Stein engineered the accident that made them Firestorm, like it was
Oh,
on purpose. So now Ronnie no longer trusts Professor Stein. They're encountering a threat where Professor Stein thinks he would be better in the driver's seat. So they're immediately in conflict.
interesting. Wow, that's great, man. 10 pages for that story? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
10
good.
pages. Yeah, and it's Jesus Marino on art
Great.
with Romulo on colors. It looks so good. It's a real classic Firestorm design. If you look on my Twitter, I have at least one page up there, but it's classic Firestorm.
That's great, man. No, and he's one of my 80s favorites as well. And you're
Yeah, I
right,
love
yeah.
him. Yeah, I think he's got such a cool look.
Yeah, I mean, good lord, an active fire on top of his
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Good lord. No, and the nuclear powers and everything. No, I'm a big Firestorm fan. That sounds great. Geez, well, I certainly hope that that's a launching point for more Firestorm for you.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully we could spin. I would love to do like kind of a horror leaning Firestorm story. That would be a lot of fun.
Excellent. Oh, this is interesting from Comic Boom. How would you rank the Chief? And I'm assuming he means Niles, but maybe not. Comic Boom, feel free to clarify if you're talking. I'm assuming you're talking about Niles and not Jane. But how would you rank the Chief in intelligence ranking in the DCU? I know. Mr. Terrific is always called the third smartest man in the DCU, behind Batman and Luther.
Yeah, I always think that's a little for me is silly because I think that I'm really smart about comic books, but I'm really dumb about fixing a car. And, and it's I think that intelligence is very situational.
Sure.
I think that definitely Batman and Luther and Mr. Terrific are very diverse in their knowledge. The chief, Niles Calder, is super, super specialized. Like he's a surgeon. He is, he figured out how to put a brain in a robot. He's figured out how to take Larry, who is radioactive, and make special bandages. Like his solutions are, outside the box to say the least. So it's like he's smart, but it's a weird smart. And I don't think that I think in his very specific arena, he couldn't be outmaneuvered, you know. But you take him out of that arena, and he's going to be a fish out of water. And then with the new chief, she's an excellent leader. She's good. She's a good strategist. This personality is very built towards this very specific job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now mentioning Luther, I have to think back to Edison Rex
Oh,
and
right.
that great series that you did with Chris Robertson. That was part of Monkey Brain and everything. Um, is it collected? Are people able to get a trade or anything? I mean, it's a great
There's
digital
two
comic.
there's two trades out there. We never got to collect the third arc because there's like 18 issues total out there. There is for a while we were running the pages on the Hive webcomic place. I think it's just called the Hive or the Beehive. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But if you go looking for it, you can find pretty much all of it for free online collected.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so it's out there if you want to read it. We have a plan to finish that story. It just who knows that'll ever happen. We had over the pandemic, there was interest in from an animation for doing it for animation.
Oh, wow.
But we almost got there, but the deal just wasn't right, and we ultimately Chris and I decided not to do it. But that would have definitely helped get it back on track. I don't know if we did wrap up the rest of the series, if I would be able to draw it, just because I'm swamped with writing. I
Sure.
would probably bring someone else in, and then kind of just steer the ship from above and make sure the designs all kind of matched with what we were doing with the series. But I have a document that that I submitted to Chris where it was just like, this is the plan. This would go. This would get everything tied up in a nice little bow and really make a lot of sense for the series. I still love it. I have. There's a lot of cool things we did with that.
I so agree, man, and I really enjoyed that series that you and Chris did. And again, I think Monkey Brain really hit the ground running with so many great ideas, and Ben Dead still continues. But that was my first exposure to you. That was my first exposure to Ibrahim Mustafa
Yeah.
and Chris Sabelling.
Right. Right.
So no, there was some really
Yeah.
great ideas in there,
Josh
man.
Williamson had a book there
Yes,
too. Him and Mike Henderson were doing Mask and Mobsters.
yes, Masks and Mobsters, absolutely, man.
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of us all kind of came up through that, and then they were a real forerunner with putting original comics on Comixology. So it was definitely a fun moment to be a part of.
Boy, and there's another heartbreaking thing of what's happening at Comixology.
Yeah,
I have no
yeah,
idea what Amazon's plans are with the label, and I mean, so many great Comixology's originals even now that we got in the last couple of years. So it's yeah. What do you? I mean, and isn't that interesting? I mean, God, I'm really happy for you, Dennis, in terms of the fact that you're getting all these great writing opportunities. But yeah, it is. I mean, and I've been reprinting a lot of old word balloons and stuff, and yeah, it's interesting to look back 10, 15, 18 years and where things were and now where things are and stuff. It's an ever changing world.
yeah, yeah. Constantly moving. Yeah, it's a bummer what happened with Comixology. Sorry to see it go. Like it was great, and like in its heyday, like I read so many comics on that app. It was perfect.
Oh, I love this theory for Comic Boom. Niles has the intelligence to resurrect Manchester Black. Philip Kennedy Johnson killed him in Action Comics 1050. Yes, he did. He says steal him for the Doom Patrol. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be.
He'd be a good foil for the Doom Patrol.
Yeah, I loved that whole that Grant Morrison Authority team, that mini that they did with Michael Janin. That was
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Like all those characters were a lot of fun too.
I so agree, man. Dennis, way to go. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think you're setting the table for a really interesting series that starts in Lazarus Planet. Again, give me the subtitle.
Yeah, Lazarus Planet, Dark Faith.
Dark Fate.
That's out on Valentine's Day.
Yep.
And then Doom Patrol #1 comes out on March 28th. Final order cutoff for the scratch off cover is going to be this Sunday. So if you want that cover in specific, now's the time to order it. And then for the rest of the series, the final order cutoff will be March 5th. So we got a little bit of time. Over the next month, I'll definitely be talking about the series and hyping it up. Probably we'll reveal the logo. Just reveal a little bit more art. Show some of the art with Brian's colors on it. It's going to be a fun time.
And hey, also when you're doing the final order for that scratch off cover, you want to also get the glow in the dark cover.
Yeah,
Featuring
that's issue 2. Yeah, you want to get
yeah,
that. Yeah. Hopefully we can get a lot more of those character driven variants out there.
there you go. Oh, final question from Caesar of Rome. He wants to know who's the better medical doctor, the Chief or Doctor Midnight.
Oh, that's a good question. Man, yeah, I feel like that'd be real interesting because the Chiefs' methods are again unorthodox.
Yes.
Niles Calder, and I think he would do things that Doctor Midnight would never ever do. So, could you argue that's better? I don't know. I
Well,
think I think one's by the book and the other one is just doing it on the fly.
yeah, if you want a third arm growing out of your back or something, you want the Chief.
Niles Calder's your guy. Yeah,
Exactly, and if you want to take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning, you want Charles McNider. So
exactly.
or Beth Chappell. So yeah, I think that's the breakdown, Caesar. So that's great. I love Doctor Midnight. I
Me
gotta
too.
tell you,
Me
man.
too.
And I'm so happy that Jeff's doing the JSA, and I love what Jeff is doing with the JSA right now, and the different time periods.
Yeah, you can't beat Michael Janin on art. Like
And
great.
Ordway's doing the flashback stuff in the series and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Ordway's killing it too. Like that art looks so good. Yeah, and
I'm with you.
Todd Knock on the Stargirl series that looks
Yes.
great. Like yeah, it's a lot of good art out there.
And again, you're enjoying it as well with Burnham.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
who did the Firestorm story with you?
Oh, Firestorm is Jesus Marino.
Jesus Marino, absolutely. again, I really think I listen. I love Marvel, but I also love DC. DC was my first love. It just like you, Dennis. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a big DCU fan, and I my that's where my nerd knowledge of
Yeah, yeah.
comics
I'm
really goes
a
to.
Claremont X-Men. Like that's a sweet spot for me. Like as far as like Marvel, that's where I'm heavy. Like in Marvel,
Okay,
and I have a lot of little other pockets that I love. But with DC, like it's just across the board, and from a really early age, I was super into it. Like so, it's I've been a like that was my first comic was a Batman comic. So I mean, it's just I've been just been a DC guy all my life. But yeah, yeah, for sure.
no, and growing up with those 100-page spectaculars and all the great reprints that we would get in the '70s really kind of helped my love for the backstory of DC going back to the '40s and '50s.
Yeah. Do you
So,
remember those water ski shows that they used to do?
of course,
Okay, so
absolutely.
I was there as a very, very, very young kid, like maybe four. This is my one of my earliest memories, and that's where I got my first comic. It was that Batman comic, and like it's like I think it's like 318 or something. I don't know. I'd have to track it down, but uh, like I was at that show, and they were just handing out comics at the end, and I was already a fan from like watching Super Friends and
Sure.
Batman on TV and all of that, but. Yeah, I was hooked immediately. Like they the first one was free. They got me.
That's excellent, man. No, too funny. I love it. Well, Dennis, next time let's go into our DC history love more and
Oh
talk
yeah, I would
about
love
that
that, man.
stuff.
That would be great.
So definitely. But very excited for Doom Patrol. Again, next week in Lazarus Planet, you'll read the Firestorm story, and then Valentine's Day, you'll get the 10-page setup with Chris and Dennis for the Doom Patrol series that starts at the end of March. And again, if you want that scratch off cover with all the Plain Jane issues or images, final order cutoff is this Sunday, so you better move, man. Don't wait.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, John. I really appreciate it.
Dennis, thank you so much for coming back. Absolutely. And thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow night, it's Mike Norton and Rodney Ramos talking about their brand new series. Or no, is it? I think
Ray
it's
for Roberts.
Rafer Roberts. Wrong ours. It's like Lois Lane. It's like getting Lori Lamaris mixed up with Lana Lang. Shame on me.
Rayfer was the first guy that ever paid me to do a comic.
There you go. So
Yeah.
Rafer
It's
and
all
Norton.
connected.
It's true, man. It's a small comics community. There's
That's
no
right.
question about that. So that's tomorrow night on War Balloon Live. I hope you'll join me then. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.